It was the sudden appearance of a warp storm at the Kaurava system's outer edge that first caught the attention of the Imperium, and not just the Imperium. After hundreds of years under the neglectful watch of the Imperial Guard, nearly every force in the galaxy would descend upon the planet of Kaurava, bent only on domination and victory. 3 races had long dwelled in there. The Imperial Guard, its supposed rulers, the Orc tribes of Kaurava II, which the Guard had never successfully put down, and the Necron, who had slept undisturbed for untold millennia beneath Kaurava III. Where the Chaos Marines came from, or how, none can say. Did the Warp Storm bring them, or did they bring the Warp Storm? Both appeared suddenly on Kaurava IV, and in an eye blink, half the system's Imperial forces were gone, killed or claimed by the madness of chaos. In quick succession, the others flocked to Kaurava. The Space Marines, the Imperium's super soldiers, descended on Kaurava II, planning to finally cleanse the system, both of the troublesome Orcs and the Chaos Marines, the sworn mortal enemies. The Tau appeared next, not far above, on one of the planet's moons. In the interests of protecting its ordered empire from the effects of human folly, the Tau came seeking to contain the Warp Storm, and in so doing, expand the territory's border. On their moon, they built a mighty fortress, and there forged a space cannon capable of interplanetary devastation. Among the wastes of Kaurava III, the Necrons, perhaps awakened by the disruptive forces of the Warp Storm, slowly massed their lethal legions. In quick response, webway gates, long unused, flickered to life, and Eldar poured forth, ready to battle their dark, death-dealing adversaries. Meanwhile, in the shadow of an ancient portal gate, the Dark Eldar slipped stealthily out of the murky depths of the webway. They would be like carrion birds, flying above the battlefield, and when all were weary from the fight, make the battlefield into a feasting ground. Last to arrive, and perhaps most to be feared, were the Sisters of Battle, holy maidens and bearers of the God Emperor's faith. They had come to cleanse the system of corruption and filth. Their faith left them fanatical, unafraid of death and zealous in their cause. Nothing here was clean. All must be purged. Now, war rages anew, and only the victorious may write their history. Only the victorious will claim the planets of Kaurava. More than any other race, the Eldar concern themselves with the distant past and the distant future. In visions, Farseer Keris anticipated the reawakening of their ancient foes, the Necrons, on Kaurava III. A webway gate, unused for many millennia, flickered to life. In the blink of an eye, a barren tract of the wasteland planet became a sprawling base of operations, and the Eldar army poured forth from it. Just as quickly, this stronghold vanished from the naked eye, concealed by Eldar artifice. The Eldar had learned long ago that no bulwark, no matter how strong, could halt the slow, implacable progress of the Necrons. Only illusion, deceit, and misdirection could accomplish that goal. And these are things at which the Eldar are peerless. The Eldar had prepared a harrowing gauntlet for their invaders, with all the feints and deceptions they could muster. This stronghold was not just a foothold, not just a key strategic point, not just home to many Eldar secrets. No! Through its long history, it had become sacred to the craft world Eldar, and they would defend it accordingly.
They approach. We are prepared.
Yes, Farseer, but
Yes?
must we fight?
We shall fight. They must never suspect. They shall come, expecting the obvious, the simple, the artless. They shall stab at the shadows with confused minds and troubled hearts. Meanwhile, we shall appear unseen from 10 directions, and from every one, strike a fatal blow. Do you know the history of this place, which we call Esselir Talith and the young races call the Upper Wastes?
We, the Eldar, made our war camp here. In a past age.
Yes, that is so. Our ancestors came here to fight the Necrons when they were an overwhelming wave that swept the worlds. This system was one of their stages of destruction, their foundries of undeath. Our ancestors defeated them here. We constructed our war operations center here as an illusion. No brute army, no simple display of force could uncover its secrets, and none ever shall. No, it is more than an illusion. It is a clever trap, this place our ancestors forged. It is a net covered in leaves that the savage beast willingly stands on, tempted by a bloody morsel, only to find itself hoisted, trapped at the hunter's mercy. No, we shall guard our secret. No force can strike a target it cannot find. We shall not yield up our foothold on this world. Kaurava was once ours, and shall be ours again. We came here long, long ago. We did battle with our deathless foes, the Necrons, and won. This day we have lost. If they swarm again like locusts here, some other must stop them. For we shall be gone.
Many millennia ago, The Necrons and Eldar had waged epic war across the lands of Kaurava III. And in that distant age, the Eldar had prevailed. Now it was as if that same battle replayed itself, but vanquisher and vanquished were reversed. All the deadly might of the Eldar art of war proved useless against the Necron onslaught. All the premonitions and provisions of Farseer Keres failed to match her adversary, the Necron Lord. The other combatants in the Kaurava system had distracted the Eldar. The Necrons grew strong, while the Eldar's strength was whittled away. The Necron Lord, or the Dark Gods he served, surely took some malevolent satisfaction in the victory over the Eldar stronghold. The Necron army did not stop at the slaughter of all life forms, but trampled every last vestige of the Eldar presence, uncovering many of their ancient supply caches in the process. Little was ever uncovered, and little will ever be known of how the warp storm was unleashed on the Kaurava system's fourth habitable planet. Whether guardsmen there grew corrupt and turned to evil worship, or whether the storm took them unawares, is an open question. What is without doubt is that at the storm's eye lay the lair of the Chaos Space Marines. And at the heart of this lair, a network of unholy and blood-stained shrines, linked somehow inextricably to the storm itself. Although the lethal warp storm would flicker and squall here and there, ever shifting, a permanent conduit to the warp was maintained between these shrines. A charged field of immateria whirled there, certain death to any who had not given themselves over fully to chaos. In that radiant deadly energy field, strange shapes could be seen dancing, screaming, howling. Any would-be conqueror of this unholy citadel would somehow have to dispel the chaos field that protected it. To enter it would be certain death, and while it stood, nothing could reach the forces of chaos that lurked at its center.
They come! They come! Yes, we feel them! They approach! Their blood shall flow at our feet! Blood for the Blood God! Yes! We shall slake our thirst for death! For chaos! For terror! Yes!
They draw near. Let them come. The very ground will poison you. Demons will appear from the warp when your back is turned. And we shall lash out from every direction, and yours shall be the cries of death and horror. The sound of your doom will ring in your skull, in your soul. You shall tremble, and your blood shall be a gift to the Blood God. Let them come. We are ready. No! We cannot lose! We cannot die! How can we?
Without our devotion, without our sacrifice,
The horrid blossom of chaos will wither! Will die! This world is slipping from our grasp!
Gods, who guide the actions of the Necron multitudes, look bitterly upon the Chaos Gods as upstarts and rivals. The Necron troops marched in mindless ranks, overwhelming the Alpha Legion just as they would any other living opponent. And yet, there was almost a vindictive air to the thoroughness with which they slaughtered the vanquished soldiers of chaos, smashing their shrines and laying waste to their buildings. The Imperium, Eldar, and Tau looked on as one of the forces of evil was thoroughly annihilated. However, as formidable a threat as Lord Feravius Charon and his Alpha Legion Marines had been, their defeat was in no way encouraging. Could any living force halt the tidal wave of Necron death as it crashed over the planets of the Kaurava system? The Dark Eldar little feared an attack on their base of operations, situated as it was on the dark side of the moon, well within the reaches of the warp storm of Kaurava 4. The seventh ancient gate lay on that moon, but the Dark Eldar, knowing its technology well, had fixed it to work only for them when they had arrived there. The effect of this hubris and the general anarchic nature of Archon Terrell's soldiers resulted in a sprawling makeshift reproduction of Komorah, the Dark Eldar home city. Surrounding the major war camp lay smaller camps, surrounded by miles of torture ground, a sort of cage garden of the homunculus Grumanael's making. Rich with plunder, enslaved scraps and goods, this area had grown and sprawled. Meanwhile, the center grew dense with powerful Dark Eldar, and the legendary Asdrubael Vecht, leader of Taril's Blackheart Cabal, was said to oversee the war preparations there. To say the Dark Eldar were unprepared for an attack would not be quite accurate. The Dark Eldar are ever ready for battle. It is a sport and a passion to their kind, and there is no such thing as catching them off their guard. Nonetheless, the miles of torture gardens were poorly attended at best, and full of prisoners, many still capable of turning against their captors. For an attacker, there was a faint glimmer of hope.
We are fresh from the fight. We have shed blood. Death, terror, and anguish sang sweetly in our ears.
But Lord Terran, have you taken prizes?
Do you doubt me, Grumenea? Many prisoners were taken. We have our tribute to Komara, and many left over from our slave chambers and your torture grounds.
Come, Archon! Come to my torture grounds. We win and lose, but always richer with slaves and spoils.
Indeed, we shall be well respected and rewarded when we return to Komara.
When we return, if we return. Return the victors. Return
return the vanquished? My grounds, where screams are flowers and pain their fragrance. Fine nest we have. High upon the cliff, hard to see, harder still to reach. Will they reach this nest? Will they take away my garden? Are you questioning my right to lead? My inevitable victory? I am the deadly shadow and the bird of prey. I am the poisoned dagger that brings swift death. These crude and foolish armies know nothing of strategy. If they see a wall, they attack it. If they see an army, they charge at it. They will be too busy with each other to notice us. Or if they do, it will be too late. Worry not. And it is of no matter, we keep a keen watch. If an army approached, surely we would see it coming. Then, we would tear it to pieces. You fool! I will have your head for this! Quickly, back to Gunnar! Well, if he had died, I should have taken his place. Now I must flee.
Between the Necrons and Dark Eldar armies, although both were undoubtedly evil, was in many ways a struggle of life versus death. For the Dark Eldar were devotees of life, feasting on its vibrancies and its excesses. The Necrons, for their part, stood only for death and cold brute power. Unfortunately for the Dark Eldar, the weapons of horror and suffering were entirely lost on the unfeeling, metal-bodied Necron army. Indeed, where the Dark Eldar remained a small and agile force, the Necrons multiplied until they were a sea without number, an advantage which served them greatly in overwhelming the Dark Eldar stronghold. As they killed each other on the field of battle, did either side remember that once, in a past age, they had also been mortal enemies at war? Perhaps this memory deepened the bitter despair of the Dark Eldar as they fought and died. Perhaps there was a gloating air of vengeance to the Necrons as they crushed them. The vast Tau military complex on Kaurava II's second moon had always been intended for purposes above and beyond the current war. In a Tau-dominated solar system, this complex would become a key outpost on the Empire's border. This moon base had been named Nan Yanoi, or Sword Moon, referring to the powerful Arca cannon built there. This weapon could fire its devastating ion beam on any territory of any planet in the system. Heavy fortifications and anti-aircraft arrays were not enough for the Earth-cast architects of Nan Yanoi. To these, they added an ambitious orbital perimeter defense system, which would fire ion beams similar to that of the Arca cannon, tuned to harm only intruders and spare Nan Yanoi's infrastructure from any damage. When complete, Nan Yanoi would be unassailable. Unfortunately, the Tau stronghold was attacked before it was complete. Many systems and fortifications were not yet fully operational, including the perimeter defense system. An invasion fleet could be shot down, but they could not as easily protect against a small force from making a beachhead at one of the gaps in the Tau's outer defenses. Such a feat would be extraordinarily difficult, but it might just be possible.
welcome your gracious presence, Aun Royu.
I see that our Earthcast engineers have made splendid progress in constructing the Nanyanoi base station.
Yes, Your Eminence, it is nearly complete. There are only a few gaps remaining in our perimeter defenses, and they are heavily guarded until our orbital defense system is fully operational.
Setting stabilizers. Ready to fire.
Excellent! And this Arca cannon you have built, quite a marvel, as I understand it.
Indeed. From this moon, we can fire on any habitable territory in the Kaurava system. Do you wish to inspect it yourself? It harms only advanced life forms, thus avoiding damage to structures and plant life.
This is indeed most commendable.
Our orbital defenses were built using the same technology. Both are controlled from this location.
What is that?
The perimeter has somehow been breached. I must attend to this. Please, Your Excellence, return to the Coalition Center.
Yes, that may be best.
Dispatch Pathfinders, locate the source of the breach, and see that they do not gain entrance and establish a foothold. Notify all Fire Warriors and Kroot Carnivore squads. Let us hope that our defenses are strong enough to hold them. Pick your targets! Aun Royu, noble ethereal! Oh, we have lost you! We have lost all!
The brutality with which the masses of Necrons crushed the Nanyanoi moonbase was one of the bloodiest episodes of the Kaurava conflict. It had been suggested that had the Tau completed their advanced defenses on the base, the Necrons would have been easily deflected. However, others contend that few walls have ever withstood the full force of a Necron onslaught. The sack of the moon base was a bitter lesson for the leaders of the Tau military. They saw the death of a revered ethereal and a noted commander as a terrible failure to embody the philosophy of the patient hunter. It was haste and hubris, they reasoned, that had caused the ruin of their ambitions. The Necrons, meanwhile, with cold efficiency, had gathered the dying and captive Tau, Kroot, and Vespids. They were given to the flayed ones to practice their ghoulish art upon, in preparation for the next battle. It was no secret that it was the warbus Gorguts himself who led the Wa in the Kaurava conflict. But who were the orcs he led? Imperial records indicate that these orcs had always been in Kaurava, going back at least a millennium. It seems that when Gorguts arrived, they welcomed him as a long-awaited hero. These rugged Kauravan orcs had sometimes overrun the system's 4 planets, and sometimes been beaten back to their secret stronghold in the Rockclaw Mountains. There had never once been a successful attempt to breach the vast hideout there, and the orcs believed there never could be. But in the past, these orcs had always retreated to this place in great numbers at the first sign of defeat. Gorgut saw such behavior as un-orky. He insisted that you had to take a bolter round or 2 if you wanted to win. And Gorguts lived only to win. Gorgut's strategy meant that the Orc stronghold was not invincible. But this did not mean that it was undefended. Reaching the lair was one thing. Penetrating its defenses was entirely another.
You see, Big Boss Gorgut, this here's the strongest and bestest orc horde has ever held an orc.
Oh, is that so then?
Ain't no Yumi's got in here ever. With the rock-claw mountains all round us, there's only one way in. Even if there was to get in, they'd have all the boys to face. Oh, and the knobs, and the tanks. Then there's the squig-offs.
Say they beat all that.
That's when we get them with the fighter bombers. We'd squash them to a pulp. We got watchers watching day and night. Nobody but an orc gets close to us without we see them and crush them to smithereens. Boss! Boss! There's enemies in the camp! What? In the camp? We gotta stop them before they gets to the killing spot. Them drums! Beat the drums! Get to 'em!
What's this here killing spot?
Beat the drums! We've got to hold the killing spot!
Bestest orc horde ever, huh?
Gold! My beautiful orc gold!
I've had enough of this. Come on, boys. Let's get out of here.
Under the war banner of war boss Gorgut's Headhunter, the Orcs of Kaurava had proved themselves tough, capable warriors. Their numbers, brute strength, and tenacity could not be overestimated. Neither Gorguts nor his army, however, were prepared for the deathless legions of the Necrons. Undaunted by the fearsome reputation of the Orcs, the Necron shadow swept in on the Rockclaw Mountains. They coursed through the mountain paths and poured into the ancient stronghold sacred to the Kauravan Orcs, which had never before known intruders. Although the Orcs fought bravely, and many who died that day should have been sung heroes, all fell, crushed beneath the flood. This decisive battle spelled the end of the Kauravan Orcs. The Necron methodically hunted every last Orc down. Strangely, several reports suggest that an Orc rocket blasted off from the Rockclaw Mountains, just at the moment of the Necron victory. Still, even if Gorguts were aboard this rocket and made it to safety, the Kauravan cause was lost for the Orcs. The Blood Ravens had learned the value of speed and mobility through hard battlefield experience. Force Commander Boreal, who had studied under the famed Commander Angelos, sought to make his reliance on stationary defensive structures as small as possible. Therefore, rather than build up the Space Marines' Central Command, entire companies were reserved in the fleet above Kaurava II. These would be ready to deep strike with deadly speed into any territory, including the Bloodraven's own headquarters. If attacked by an enemy, drop pods would cover the Marine stronghold in a steely, thunderous hail, swarming the Space Marines' enemies with super soldiers and dreadnoughts. Force Commander Boreal was sure of his plan. His greatest weapon was, after all, the superiority of the Space Marines themselves. Who could weather such a rapid and devastating defensive tactic?
Commander Boreal, enemy forces in our perimeter.
Where?
Southern Quadrant, but they were on the move. Current location unknown.
There is no time to be lost. Battle, brothers! Space Marines, today the enemy is at our door. We know our duty and we will do it. We fight for our honor as Blood Ravens, as Space Marines, and we fight in the name of the Emperor. And if we die this day, we die in glory. We die heroes' deaths, but we shall not die. No, it is the enemy who will taste death and defeat. As you know, most of our battle brothers are stationed in space, prepared to deep strike. Our perimeter has been prepared in the event that our enemies should be so bold and so foolish. We have placed numerous beacons, allowing for multiple, simultaneous, and devastating defensive deep strikes. Codex Astartes names this maneuver Steel Rain. We will descend upon the foe. We will overwhelm them. We will leave none alive. Meanwhile, our ground forces will ensure the full defense of our headquarters. We are the Space Marines. We are the Emperor's Fury. Failed. The Emperor.
In his last moments of life, Force Commander Boreal suddenly understood the full extent of his error. He had completely underestimated the threat of the Necron horde. With terrifying force, they had poured across the borders of the lands of solitude, slaughtering all in their path. As the last flicker of consciousness was dissipating from his clouded eyes, the great Space Marine reviewed all that had passed. and saw that by the time his scouts had spied the Necrons through their scopes, his defeat was already inevitable. The Space Marines must revise their protocols. Segmentum must be warned. And with that single thought, Boreal tried to rise. But the fingers of a cold, lifeless hand were suddenly clamped around his arm. His soul had not yet left his body, and now it was destined for a more terrible fate than death. He would never join the God Emperor.
The Sisters of Battle rely greatly on their faith. It is their sustenance and their shield. When they first came to the tainted world of Kaurava, Confessor Turganum March was quick to see how much holy light and fire it would take to cleanse the 4 planets. He therefore brought the living Saint Anais and placed her in their primary bastion in Sama on Kaurava 1. Following a secret and ancient practice, the living saint was imbued with the inviolable aura, an aura of invincibility which would prevent any chance, he thought, of defeat. Guarded at the last by this inviolable aura, the Sisters of Battle marched with great surety. Who, in truth, would dare oppose them? What adversary could faith and fire not sweep from before them? In the face of chaos and vile aliens, the Sisters of Battle merely redoubled their fervent prayers and penances and fought on. They came to believe that glorious victory was the only outcome. The idea that any would dare attack their mighty bastion was unthinkable. The possibility that their bastion could fall beyond belief.
Good, she comes.
Sisters, the living holy saint of the Emperor, Saint Anais, scourge of heretics. Now, in the name of the Emperor!
Good.
There, it is done. May the Emperor's blessing carry us on to victory, sisters!
We thank you, honored martyr.
So, it is true then, these blessed shrines will confer invincibility?
Indeed, within each shrine lies a true and sacred relic of the ecclesiarchy. Now that the edifices have been blessed by a living saint, they confer upon her the inviolable aura, as scribed and fervently mastered by the great ecclesiarch Jonasiah Vuonis.
And wherever she goes, no harm may befall us?
Precisely. Neither our persons nor our belongings.
One pure bright candle amidst a sea of filth and darkness!
That is well said, Canoness. This is a tainted system. It may, in fact, be irredeemable.
Then we shall purge it with fire. I have yet to find a cinder that was not faithful in its praise of the Emperor. All is made ready? Yes, mistress. Good. These would-be conquerors shall have a taste of our fire and faith. The Emperor will punish them through us.
sisters! We must go as martyrs! We must go in flames! In flames!
The brave soldiers of the Order of the Sacred Rose had fully believed themselves girded and steeled against all assault, most of all in their own bastion on Kaurava 1. So their surprise was great indeed when the Necrons came upon them with irresistible force, making mockeries of their flamers, tanks, and acts of faith. Those weapons might have sufficed against the mortal and the living, but alas, the Sisters of Battle faced an entirely different sort of foe. A foe which no prayers succeeded in averting or casting down. The Necrons swarmed across the cities of Sama District, swallowing whole all that moved, and crushing all that did not. After this was done, where prayers and organ music had once been heard, silence reigned. Silence, except for the dull throb of the Necron generators and the dull thunder of the Horde marching off into the distance. The Imperial Guard's headquarters in the Dusala precinct of the city planet of Kaurava 1 was also the system's primary Bane Blade production facility. Under the strong and capable leadership of the new Governor-General Vance Stubbs, the Guardsmen were once again well supplied, armed, and organized. Any attacker would find themselves facing a formidable amount of firepower. Since the outbreak of the Warp Storm on Kaurava 4, the Imperial Guard had known a humbling series of setbacks. Losing a full 3/4 of their fighting men was just a start. General Stubbs was determined to triumph in the face of this and all other adversity. Unfortunately, a full regiment of Baneblade tanks, the Guard's armored super weapon, had that very day been dispatched to various territories throughout the Kaurava system. The Dusala precinct headquarters was thus left without a single Baneblade to its advantage. But they had their factories. Repair parts, munitions, and operating crews were moved via a system of convoys to the centrally located Mars pattern buildings, which produced the tanks. These convoys, then, were to be the Imperial Guard's weakest link, and also their greatest hope.
How are the men?
Tolerable, sir.
Morale?
Good at central, poor in the front.
Casualties?
The same, sir.
Firing squads?
20 today, 12 for cowardice in the line of duty.
Baneblade production?
Tank crew, munitions and parts are arriving by convoy on schedule, sir. As you know, it takes only the most highly trained crew to properly operate a...
I know.
Very good, General.
How many do we have on hand?
Unfortunately, sir, a shipment of 100 Baneblades has just gone out to serve.
I see. Look at this. Once this was a fine city, gleaming beacon of the Emperor's light, a center of industry. Now look at it. Commissar, I would like to see this city built up again. I would like to see towers and spires of gleaming white. I would like to see our men on parade routes, not tours of duty. I would like to see every city in this planet, every colony in this besotted, miserable system turn to the service and industry of the Imperium in the Emperor's name.
In the Emperor's name, sir.
But to see my dreams fulfilled, first we must wipe the system clean of these blasted Xenos and heretics and monsters and zealots. And to do that, this base, our center of command, must operate free of danger or harassment. Our troops are ready. Our tanks and our sentinels. And if the Emperor wills it, we will have functioning Baneblades. Tell me, Commissar, are we prepared? Or will we be lambs taken to slaughter? Well, we'll do what we can and pray for victory. The enhanced Basilisk cannon has been prepared by our tech priest engineers, has it not? It can be fired at will.
Very good, General.
It only requires an artillery spotter. We shall place our faith in the God Emperor.
In the Emperor's name, sir.
That will have to do the job. As always, we place faith in the Emperor.
All I fought for.
All my work. Crushed! Crushed! All the good men who gave their lives for this cursed, this blasted system! Though my army lies in ruins today, I have not done fighting, and I will remember who my enemies are.
Necron legions arrived in Dusala Precinct. The Imperial Guard made every preparation to rebuff their advance. Unfortunately, few walls are thick enough, and few batteries of cannon are heavy enough to stop the Necrons once they are moving in full force. Despite all the tanks, artillery, and tactics he could muster, General Stubbs was helpless against the deathless tide, and the Imperial Guard were overwhelmed. The victory was not swift, but it was absolute. The day after the battle, not even the corpses of guardsmen were to be found. Only a host of new Necron soldiers and new monoliths where Imperial bunkers had formerly stood. The Necrons had even discovered the vast generators that had powered the many factories of the Dusala Precinct, and harnessed the energy for their own terrible purposes. Once, in another age, the Necrons had fought a great war in the Kaurava system, and lost. Awakened again, so many millennia later, they found new, strange, and terrible armies around them. This time, however, profiting from the confusion of the living, they would not be denied victory. Soon, the planets teemed with the dark forms of the Necron army. Great tomb ships stood guard while others launched on excursions of conquest. In all doings, their enemies succumbed quickly in confusion and terror. This was no accident. Where the Kauravan Necrons went, Their god, the great deceiver, ever clouded the minds of their foes.